Alright, Mr. Walker back again with another series of videos. This time we're looking at exponents. Same four questions. What type of problem are we trying to solve? We're trying to simplify an expression with exponents being multiplied using our properties of exponents. How do we know what type of problem this is? There's an expression with exponents being multiplied. So here we have 3x cubed y squared times x squared y cubed. So we're multiplying and we have exponents. Version 2, so we have a quantity with an exponential expression also being raised to a power. How do we do this? We're going to use our properties of exponents. How do we check our answer? Well, we don't have an equation this time. We have an expression that we simplified. So what I do is I will go back and double check our work and our arithmetic to make sure we didn't make a mistake. So let's get into it. What are we going to try to do? We're going to try to multiply powers with the same base. And then we're going to try to find the power of a power. Well, let's take a second and look at an exponential expression. The x is our base. So we're going to multiply powers with the same base. Our base is x. Our exponent is the 5. 3 is what we would call a coefficient. And it is not raised to an exponent. So let's take a look at what happens when we multiply two powers with the same base. So we've got 7 to the second and 7 to the third. If we multiply 7 to the second, that's the same as 7 times 7. 7 to the third is 7 times 7 times 7, 3 times. If we add up all the 7s, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 7 to the second times 7 to the third is 7 to the fifth. And this will be the same if we change the 7 to an x squared and an x to the third. We would still add the 2 and the 3 and get x to the fifth. So let's go back and look at our properties. This is the same as what I did when we did simplifying expressions or equations. Look at it two ways. Let's look at it with arithmetic, meaning we've got numbers. We have 2 to the third times 2 to the fourth, which is equal 2 to the 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 7, so our answer is 2 to the seventh. Now, if we look at it in terms of algebra, now we're going to use variables. A to the m times a to the n is equal to a to the m plus n. And so that's our property for multiplying exponents. Let's look at an example. We've got 3 times 3 to the third. Now, this 3, go off to the side here for a second and talk about invisible math. That 3 is the same thing as 3 to the 1. We just don't write the 1 there. But for bookkeeping, we're going to do that right here. So 3 to the 1 times 3 to the third is 3 to the 1 plus 3, which is 3 to the fourth. And if we multiply 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, we will get 81. So that's an example using numbers. Now, let's look at an example using variables. Okay? So here, we have a to the fifth times a times b squared. Now, back at the top, we talked about the base. So I have 2 bases with an a and 1 base with a b. So we cannot mix the a and the b. So I'm going to rewrite this. A to the fifth, a to the first, right? We didn't write the 1 up here, but for bookkeeping, I write it there. and b to the second, which is equal to a to the 5 plus 1 and b squared. 5 plus 1 is 6, and so our answer is a to the 6, b squared. We talked back in the preview of this at the very beginning about going back at the end and sort of checking our arithmetic. So I can go back and look. I've got a 5 and a 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. That checks. And I've got a squared. That checks. So I feel good about my answer. Now, we've got another example here. So now I've got some coefficients. What's a coefficient? That's this number sitting out front, the -2 and the -3. There's no exponents here, so we're going to multiply the -2 times 3, and then I've got my exponents. So first thing I'm going to do is multiply 2 times 3, that's 6. I have a positive and a negative, so my 6 is negative. And then I've got an x squared and an x to the 5th. Add the 2 plus 5, and we get -6x to the 7th. Going back, looking at our arithmetic. And this is why we show our work, because I can look back at my work and I can check to see that I didn't make a mistake. -2 times 3 is -6. 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. And I've got -6x to the 7th, so I feel good about my work. So that's two examples of multiplying exponents. One, going back up, we did one just with numbers. We did one with variables. And then we did a final example that had numbers, coefficients, and variables. So that's how we use the power of multiplication property with exponents. Now, let's look at this second example. We're still multiplying, but we call this a power of a power. Okay? Because I've got a quantity in parentheses with an exponent raised to another power. So if we write this out the long way, I've got 7 squared 1, 2, 3 times. So we can think of that as 7 to the 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is equal to 7 to the 6th. Now at this point we haven't used our property yet. All I've done is expanded out the work and showed every step, which gets us to our property or rule. Let's look at this again. Same as always. I've got it two ways. One is with arithmetic or numbers. I've got 2 to the 3rd raised to the 4th power. Our rule says we multiply the two exponents. So 2 to the 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So our answer is 2 to the 12th. Now, let's look at the actual property in algebraic terms, meaning we're using variables. I've got a, my base, to the m raised to the n, which is equal to a to the m times n. And our integers are positive. So, let's take a quick look at a couple of examples. I've got 2 to the 4th raised to the power of 2. If we're using our properties, that means I've got 2 to the 4 times 2. I did parentheses. Parentheses mean multiplication, which means our answer is 2 to the 8th. Going back to our check my arithmetic. I've got 4 times 2 is 8. I've got 8. My base is 2. I feel good about my answer. One more. I've got C to the fifth raised to the fourth, which means I've got c to the 5 times 4. 5 times 4 is 20, so my answer is c to the 20th. Quick check of my arithmetic. I've got a 5, I've got a 4. 5 times 4 is 20. I feel good about my answer. So those are two properties. We've looked at the power to a power rule and multiplying powers. Thank you for watching. That's it for this one.